Hi, it's James from Depths Coaching. On some of the news that I've heard over the last week, just about depression, and a couple of people have lost their battle with depression. I just thought I'd talk about it just briefly, and I put a post on last night just saying about the awareness of this needs to be increased, and that got me thinking about it, and actually got me thinking about my own journey, leading to depression and through depression, and then actually now being a coach myself. And the awareness of it is what's required, because it's one thing that you will never ever understand, and somebody that's going through it, nobody will understand it because they don't really understand it, and then somebody that's even been through it trying to understand it at the other end is just very, very difficult. But we've got to be aware of it, and I think the more we're aware of it, then the more we can hopefully stop it before it comes, or it doesn't feel like such of a weight in the person's mind that's going through it. And I've had to, now knowing what I know now in coaching, and helping people, and in my own journey, I think we get through these different stages in life, and we're all happy kids carrying on with life. Well, biggest percentage of us anyway, and then I think we hit a bit. Well, this was for me personally. You hit a bit where you start to think you're at effect of everything. So you start to get to a place where you start blaming things, maybe even blaming teachers, ex-partners, bosses. You get through this place where you think, the world, life just really isn't very fair. It's probably just because of the way you're feeling at that time. And, you've not really built up enough in yourself to know or to be ready for what you were ready to face. And, if anybody thinks back to being 16 years of age, and that was you ready to, face finding a job, who you want to become, maybe meeting a partner, all of that sort of stuff at 16, who was emotionally, physically, and mentally ready at that age to face some of those things? And and the emotional support is just, it isn't there. It's not there in schools, and your parents do their best, but then that's what I'm saying, they're just a byproduct of their parents, and this stuff keeps carrying on and carrying on. So it is about awareness, because there's some things we'll never understand, but we've got to be aware that we get through these changes, right? And I believe you get through a change of blame, and the world's a bit unfair, and then through your disappointment in that, maybe your disappointment in yourself, or your disappointment in everything round about you, you start to hit what I would say is your wee bit of your destructive stage, where you maybe drink too much, you maybe do things that you don't really want to do. And it's really about how long you stay in that, because that's a bit like smoking a cigarette or having a drink. It's not good for you, but you're getting a bit of a kick out of it. So you do get a bit of an internal kick, an internal energy out of this wee bit of destruction that you get through. But that's where you always end up coming to this, what I call the inward stage. It's where you eventually look in and you realise that the only person that's ever going to get you out of your life, the only person that's ever going to make things work for you, is you. And then when you start, depending on what you've done in life, if you were like me, where you spent so many years, in blame and anger, and so many years in destruction, once you eventually become that inward person, then you've got to start facing up to all of that stuff. You've got to start looking into it, and that's what that's what took me. That's where depression hurt me. When I started hitting this inward stage of going, who am I? Who do I want to become? And then I didn't like what I seen. So that led to and I can talk about who I've seen. I don't know anybody else's battle, because you'll never know what somebody's going through themselves. But when you say were you suicidal, nobody ever wants to die, I don't think. I think what it is well, what it was for me was, it seemed like this feeling, this pain you were in was just never ever going to lift. It was just never ever going to go. No matter what you did, you're just going to, and that for me, I could have handled anything. If somebody said to me, you're going to get through this for 5 years, when I was like, it really started around about 32, 33. If somebody said to me at that time, 5 years of pain and then everything will be good, I'd be like, right, yeah, give me it, I can do this. But at that time, you think you're going to live the rest of your days feeling like that, and you have no clue, you can't understand it, you don't know why you're feeling like that, and it's very, very, very rough. So, you know, this inward battle, and it is a bit of a battle, you know, is very, very tough, but I can tell you, being more aware of it is what's going to get you back. Now, it took me quite long to get through it, and then, you know, what I'm trying to do is make sure it doesn't take people as long. And, you know, the quickest way to getting through that inward stage is genuinely, you know, looking back in your life with appreciation. No matter how good, how bad, if you can find a piece of appreciation in that to say, you know what, this has made me into who I am today, and feel satisfied with where you are right now, then you're starting to, you know, make roads towards what you want to be. And it's from that place that you need to stop, you know, giving a shit about the people and the circumstances that got you to where you are. It's at that bit where you need to say to yourself, you know, this is the image of the person that I want to be. And then from there, you've got to just practice being that person for as long as you can, until that becomes who you are. And at one point, and I can remember it for myself, it was when I was in LA at Date Destiny with Tony Robbins, where I was working so hard to be the person that I wanted to be, and this other person, you know, I just didn't like, you know, was holding me back. And it was during that course that I was able to realise and bring all of that in together and say, you know what, if it wasn't for all the stuff that had happened in my life, then I wouldn't be on this journey. And then that gave me a whole new appreciation for what I was doing. But what I would say is to try and work that stuff out when you're in that place. It's too difficult. It's too difficult, so you've got to do your best to just appreciate it, appreciate that it's changed you, appreciate that you are going to change. And that's what the inward bit's all about. It's about you finding out what's important to you, because you've ignored it for the last 10, 20, 30 years, whatever it is. And then you're on this track. But, you know, if I'm asked honestly about depression, you know, and thankfully I get through mine, you know, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was by far the best thing that ever happened to me, because the path that I was on, I could have stayed in that destructive place for another 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And, you know, and I would have lived, you know, to whatever age, a very, very unhealthy, unhappy, yeah, but I would never have went to that dark place that I went to. But it was from that place that I was able to, you know, change and become the person that I was always meant to be at the start, before I, you know, as you say, blamed everybody else and followed that path of doubt, blame, anger, then on to, you know, just a bit of destruction. So really, if anybody's at the inward stage where they're facing all of this stuff, this is what I'd say you're at the last stage. So seek out the right advice, you know, speak to the right people. You know, if you're speaking to the people that are still in the discouraging bit or the destructive bit, they'll be like, who cares? They'll just not give you the right advice. But you will find the right people that, you know, have kind of been there, and they leave a wee trail. And that's what you want to do. You just want to just follow that trail. Because I think when I went to a life coach when I was depressed, you know, what I got for that was, because before that I thought, this is never ever going to go away. And that was a bit of going. It wasn't how bad it was the thought of it never going away. And I walked out of life coaching realising that there was something else. Somebody understood a bit about the mind and about how all of this works. So, you know, and I genuinely believe that nobody will ever understand what you're going through, but some people who have been through it will be aware of what comes next, will be aware of the stages that you're going to follow. And that's what I would say, just, you know, get on that path. But, you know, I've showed this before, you know, it's worth £20. And if I crumple it up, stamping it, do whatever it, it's still worth £20. And that's like a human being, you know, we never ever lose our worth, no matter what we've done, what we've been through, but we do lose our confidence and our self-esteem. But that shit can be earned, and you've got to start that from today. So if anybody's in that inward battle, you're at the final stage, so you should be happy with that. You're actually finally getting to a bit where you're going to find out who the fuck you want to be. And, you know, that guilt is what's holding you back. Just let it go. And somebody says, how often do you need to let things go? Every fucking day, every day, until they don't bother you anymore. And then just start building this person. And I'll tell you, see, when you get to it, you'll not care about anybody else's opinion of who you are, because of what you've seen, you'll never go there again. You know, it's a new path, and just keep going on it. And you know, I will spend, you know, the rest of my days doing an inward battle, because that's the way it is for me now. There's nothing outside you. Everything's got to be for you, you know, and you've got to work it out for yourself. Plenty of people out there that can help me and help everybody else, but you know, it's all down to you. But if you're at that bit, you know, hang in there. And that's what I said in that wee post. It does finish, and it is temporary. But the more you keep trying to look back in it with, like, I could have done better and I shouldn't have done that, it's just keeping you deeper and deeper and deeper. Try and find some appreciation in it, and then take responsibility for who you want to be. Alright, listen, I hope you all, you know, it is a bit of a serious message, but, you know, life goes on. We need to keep moving forward, you know, and if you see somebody in this place, just direct them forward, you know, just remind them of who they are rather than who they think they are, you know, and they'll get there. Alright, listen, my next seminar is the 6th of August, and I think there's only 10 tickets left for that, so if you want to get the last ticket, it's www.hiddendepthscoaching.com. Okay, thanks, bye.